How did everything start in your career as a comedian?
I sort of fell into it almost by accident. I was doing a creative writing degree, and everything I wrote was sort of comedy based, and a friend of mine whose name is Laura Dockrill, she has like 3 poetry books out now. She's really sort of funny performance poet. She was putting on a night and she just booked me a spot, and she basically just made me do it, and I really enjoyed it. And it took me a good couple of years to properly sort of start gigging regularly, because I wasn't quite sure where the gigs were, and sort of I was a bit kind of approached it with quite a bit of trepidation, but eventually I've been gigging regularly for about 3 years, so I really did just fall into it, and it's strange how it's panned out, but I'm glad it has.
Was it difficult in the beginning to gain the attention of the audience?
In the beginning it was so difficult, because it was a gig in a pub called, what's it called? It's called The Good Ship, and it's in Kilburn, and the stage is actually in a pit, and normally they do comedy in there, but the rest of the pub is shut, but this was like a variety night, so there were just a group of people in a pub upstairs just going about their night, unaware that anything was even on, just talking. So it was really, really loud, and it was like swimming upstream. Really, you just had to get on with it, and because I didn't really know any different, it didn't really seem that strange to me. I had a lot of other things to worry about, to be honest. The nerves were ridiculous. I think I dropped the microphone. I also followed a guy who was doing performance poetry, and he did a poem set to sort of aggressive string music about the physicality of what happens to a child's body when they're accidentally caught in a drive-by. It was really aggressive, and the guy was shouting at the end, and he went, I don't want any of you to clap, because if you clap, you're missing the point. Thank you. And then I had to go straight on after that. It was intense. So, yeah, I had other problems, basically.
Okay. What are your favorite topics?
The show I'm doing at the moment is kind of about arrested development and my own sort of attempts to become a proper adult. I think, we're in a generation now where 30 is considered a new 20 and that sort of thing. So it's I'm very interested in that, because I'm kind of making that transition into being a sort of fully functioning adult myself quite late, really, as I think it's probably true of a lot of comics. So I get a lot of material from that. Just sort of, yeah, that's the main thing I'm kind of writing about at the moment. But stuff just, you never really know when a joke's going to come to you. It's just, generally it comes out of a daydream, so it can be from any subject, and you tend to bend it to sort of whatever theme you're kind of thinking about at the time. So I don't know if I really have a favourite subject. Myself being an idiot tends to kind of work quite well.
And how long does it take to get ready for each show?
For each show, it depends really. For the show the other night, I would have done 3 or 4 practice run-throughs, but I have a gig tonight and I don't really have time to do that. So what I'll do instead is I'll write out sort of a keyword for each gag, memorise the order of it, and just pull that up in my brain on stage, really. So it's different every time, really. It depends on the gig. I mean, I'll be doing an hour next week because it's a preview for my Edinburgh show, so that I'll rehearse all day. I'll get up early and I'll just be sort of going through it all day.
Does the audience in different places differ from each other?
Oh, massively, yeah, absolutely. In the north, I've only done a few gigs in the north, but a lot of the stuff I talk about at the top of my set, generally, it involves stuff that's kind of very kind of common in the south, but not so much in the north. So it's people don't relate to it as much. So I don't really do that material here now, having learned that kind of the mediocre way, I suppose. So yeah, very much so. You have to bear that in mind. And the age makes a huge difference. If you get to a gig and there's a lot of people that are sort of in their 50s, certain references you think, well, they're just not going to get that, so I have to rejig it. So yeah, you're kind of constantly kind of working on the hoof, really.
Yeah. Have you experienced a situation when you really expect your audience to react, but there is no reaction?
Yep, yeah, that happens. That's happened many times. It's just all part of the risk you take when you're doing sort of new material, really. You get better at it, I think, but you can never be certain that a joke's going to work. And annoyingly, some of my sort of best gags are things I didn't expect to work. So you still have to try these things because you don't know. And it's just when you're sort of doing nights where you're doing new material, you are taking that risk that it's just not going to go very well. And you just have to bite that bullet, really.
Okay. How do you imagine your future? What plans do you have?
Well, I'd like to sort of do TV. I'd like to sort of tour. Basically, everything is geared towards basically having a big enough profile that I can do gigs like this sort of regularly. Touring comedians will do shows at the Stand here in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and just sort of in the Glee clubs and just all over the place. And that's what I'd love to be doing sort of in the future. But as I write as well, so I like to write for sort of radio and TV. So I think Dylan Moran is my favourite comic. like, and his his career path is one that I'd like to follow in my sort of wildest dreams.